Good evening, everyone. I have with me Miss Masaba Gupta today. When it comes to fashion collaborations, no one can cross Masaba Gupta as she's a pro in collaborating with top-notch brands like Tata Nano, Titan, Lakme, Budweiser, Levi's, and a recent one with Nykaa in 2020. Gupta is now marking her 12 years of label in luxurious fashion industry. Her design, aesthetic, and unconventional prints with feminine drapes and silhouette has remarked an unique Indianness in a very modern fashion context. Gupta has been credited as the first Indian designer to do a fashion show via Instagram. While the fashion industry experienced a huge decline in growth of daily active users since last year, House of Misaba not only weathered the storm but is also gearing up for her journey ahead and has managed to hit over 80% of sales in FY 2021. We have with us none other than Miss Masaba Gupta. Hello, Masaba. Welcome to our show. First of all, congratulations on
Thank
completing
you.
12 years. Yeah.
Thank you.
And so if you can tell me how has been your journey? I'll ask some of the mundane questions first and then we'll move on to my set of questions.
My journey has been, I would say, very, how do I say? I think I've been blessed in more ways than one. I think whenever someone talks about a journey of 12 years, it's usually bittersweet, where you have some moments that are hard, some that are fairly easier. But I think that for me, it's just been something that has been really rewarding. I have had appreciation very early in my life. I've been acknowledged by women from all walks of life. The brand has been acknowledged. And I think for entrepreneurs like myself, whose name is also the brand, which can be a bit dodgy sometimes, I think I've really been uh, fortunate that the brand is treated as a separate entity and I am treated as a separate entity. So I think that to me has been lovely. But more than anything, I will say this, that I cannot think of a better journey because I've been able to live so many lives in just one life, within one life, in the last 12 years that I've been in fashion. So that's wonderful.
So you've been in the industry, as I said, just shared 12 years. So what are some of the observations that you see as far as this fashion industry is concerned? And can you tell me some of the growth trends that you've seen and some of the trends that you see coming up as well?
The one thing that I have constantly seen in the last 12 years is that for a brand, the most important thing is repeating yourself. And a lot of the time people get it wrong. They think that if you repeat yourself, if you do what you're doing over and over again, you will be put into a box in a category and no one will be interested in what you're doing. But I think the one constant thing is that nobody likes change. I think people like uh, familiarity, they like routine, they like to see a certain language. And I think they buy into a brand because that language just keeps on evolving in some shape or form over time. So I think that's one trend that I have seen, especially in Indian wear. We may say that we've evolved, we may say that the new bride is so and so, or weddings have become more intimate, or people are becoming more comfort oriented. But at the end of the day, we are a country that is rooted in tradition. We're very strong culturally, and we find that whenever there's a moment, we go back to our roots. So I think with Indian wear, especially with brands in India, I think that is one trend that I haven't seen change for maybe 20 years now that I've been watching fashion. The second thing I would say is in India, it's very easy to say that, oh, what are the trends and what's going to come next. I think the only trends that exist in this country are weddings and Bollywood. you know you want to look like your favorite movie star, you want to look today like your favorite OTT star, you want to dress like them, you want to have hair like them, you want to have makeup like them. At the same time, you are very influenced by the celebrity. Now that celebrity, the idea of the celebrity is changing. It's not just the Bollywood star, it's multiple people today. And that's who we are. India always functions very differently from the rest of the world with respect to fashion. weddings, festivals, what our elders say. I think these are the biggest trends that you see. And the one thing that I see in the coming years, though, is how Gen Z is looking at fashion. I think they will be the real disruptors of fashion. You know, so far we've seen people experiment, but not really. But these will be the guys, the millennials of today will be the guys who are going to go ahead and actually say, you know what, we're not going to wear this on our wedding. We don't want a 10 lakh rupee necklace. Give us a holiday instead. I think they're looking for experiences. They're looking for brands that are interested in storytelling. They're looking for comfort. They are looking for something that can be reused. They're smart buyers, they're intelligent buyers. So I think that to me is going to be the new trend moving forward, which will be comfort, will be the new luxury, and affordability will be, the new luxury as well. So I think that those are the two trends I see coming.
My next question is, as in the case of almost all industries and sectors, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the fashion industry as well. What
Yeah.
have been the challenges in this pandemic period? What is the fashion industry doing to meet these challenges? What is Masaba doing personally to ward off the challenges?
Whenever there is a world event that involves human emotion, I think fashion gets hit first. But fashion is also the first thing to bounce back. And it's also the first thing to always help people bounce back, you know. So I think that's something that I always believe in. I have to say that the pandemic for me has been the biggest blessing for me and the brand both. A very painful blessing, one that I realized much later, but it's been a blessing nonetheless, because we had the opportunity to really get off our whatever race we were a part of, get off our treadmills, as I call it, which you get put onto when you're part of the rat race. You're not really looking at what am I doing every day? What is my life made up of? I think it really gave us the time to sit back and really analyze why we do what we do, what are the problems we face as a brand. And I think you only see the shortcomings of a brand when you're hit by a crisis that is unexpected, So I think it gave us a great time to reinvent ourselves. We made a very, very quick shift from being an offline only brand to becoming a mix of online and offline. Today, 60 to 70% of our sales come from the e-commerce model, which is incredible, which never even happened in 2019. So I think we've become that brand that is no longer dependent on the brick and mortar format of stores of retail. We've become fluid in our approach to design. We have learned how to adapt and move very quickly, and we've learned how to learn from our mistakes and move on. So I think that's something that has been very, very great for us. And I think the biggest learning has been that less is more.
Very true.
Less work doesn't necessarily mean less work in that sense. Less work means better quality, less work means better time being spent and attention to detail, and less work means more focus for me and the team both. Me personally, as an entrepreneur, what am I doing in the pandemic? I think I'm changing gears. I've become and this is something I really wanted to talk about ever since you said that this is for women disruptors. I think as women entrepreneurs, you tend to feel shy or hold back and don't really speak your mind, because sometimes, someone says, oh, she's emotional, or she's difficult,
So true.
or
I
she's
agree with you.
arrogant.
Yes. I
But
agree.
if a man says it, he's passionate or he's driven.
Yeah.
So I think I was so afraid of speaking my mind as the owner of my own business. I was afraid of asking for brands that I collaborate with questions and pertinent questions about the business. I was afraid of questioning why they're doing something a certain way, etc., etc. And I kind of go with the flow. I think that is something that has seriously changed for me in the pandemic. I ask the toughest of questions today, not just to our collaborators, but to myself, to my employees. I keep a steady eye on finance, which I wasn't really doing earlier, because I always said, I'm the creative person, I'm not supposed to look into this, but you look into everything as an entrepreneur. Everything is your business, So That's a big change. And I think more importantly, I've learned how to say no. I'm not doing everything that comes my way, and I might be perceived as whatever I'm perceived as, but I've just become super selective about the work I do because I want to do less, but I want to do it well.
Very true, and very important lesson, in fact.
Yes, yeah.
So tell me, you just shared some bit of it on the digital transformation that you've kind of embarked on. Yeah. So how has the digital transformation accelerated your business growth, so to say? And how is House of Masaba leveraging digital, and what are the results that you're seeing?
So we saw 500% growth in the e-commerce business in the pandemic. So I'm speaking about March 20 to March 21, which was incredible. We never really thought that our consumers would make that shift so quickly and so swiftly, but it did happen, which was great. Um, More than that, I think we realized that it's so much more cost effective, to have a business that is steady on both, where you have an e-commerce model and you have a physical model. But I also realized that digital is the new 4-page ad in the coolest magazine in town. Your Instagram page is your new hoarding. Your Instagram page is the place where you communicate with consumers and you can tell your stories and help them understand the story a bit more. And I think that more importantly for digital, what happens is that you can learn and take feedback very quickly and use it. Like earlier in the day, you put up a hoarding or you put up a 10-page spread in a magazine and you wait for months and months to understand whether that ad really translated into sales. Here it's almost instant. Here you put up a photograph or you put up an imagery or you say something on social media and you will see that trickle effect of it instantly.
Right.
So I think it's really helped fashion because it's made us work. It's kept us on our toes, so you can work faster, you can work smarter, and you know exactly what to do and what not to do. So that's been great.
Right. So, being in the online buying space brings you in direct competition with a whole host of well-established e-commerce players like the Mintras and the Ajios of the world. How are you keeping yourself relevant and competitive in this kind of an environment?
So the Ajios and Mintras of the world are more of marketplaces where I think they cater to a slightly more fast fashion audience. We're in the bridge to luxury space, although we do sell on Mintra and Ajio and Tata Click and all of the websites. I think any brand today has to be a mix of both, and I'll tell you why. Because the audience is so large. We forget how many people we are in India and how many people there are in the world and how many different types of tastes and styles people have in the world. So I think that there is space for everybody. There is space for everybody, but you have to be original in whatever you're doing. Whatever your space is, there has to be a certain amount of originality to it. I really believe that the advantage that the marketplaces today have is that their inventory support, their logistic arm is so well oiled. It runs on autopilot, and that is something brands like us take some time to figure out because we're smaller operations in that sense, right? So I think if you can mix their understanding of logistic support and inventory management and pricing, and you can mix our product, I think that's a win-win situation. I don't think anybody has it all together. But what we are trying to do as a brand is that understand how a marketplace functions, but use our creative input in order to marry the two so that we're getting better. But I think today what's happened is because of the pandemic, there's a bunch of people who've moved away from fast fashion and some who have completely adopted it. So we belong to the people who want to invest in that one classic piece, or they want to invest in those two lovely saris that they can wear over and over again, but they don't really want to buy a 2,000 rupee top every 3 months, So we fall in the second bracket, and I think that that's how it works for us. But storytelling has always worked for me. I think that's how we keep up with the competition. I really believe that brands like me, like House of Masaba, we understand storytelling much better than marketplaces. I think that's where they fall short. And where we fall short is in inventory management and logistics. So there's a steady balance. So everyone's falling short somewhere.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So high fashion comes with a high price tag. Are you
Yeah.
looking at introducing more affordable collections to target a wider selection of audiences? Consumers who can afford your price tag, who can own a piece of House of
A
Masaba.
piece of Masaba. Yeah. So, we are focusing on being a bridge to luxury brand at the moment. However, especially in the clothing space, we will expand into various product categories that are slightly cheaper, that are catering to the mass. Like our cosmetics line with Nykaa is purely catering to the mass. It's at a very competitive price point between 299 and 699, which is great. And it's a very, very strong e-commerce only product. Our plan for the coming year is to venture into athleisure, which will be a out and out mass brand. But in the Indian ethnic wear space, we are going to stay in the bridge to luxury segment. That's something we're very clear about. But because we're a print heavy brand, because we're a brand that's young and we can adapt into various products, we will expand into products which have nothing to do with clothing, but are in the mass space. So that's the plan for the next year or two.
I also see you are in the jewelry space also to certain collective exclusive pieces. So are you
Yes.
looking at expanding that range as well?
So see, these are all a part of over 3, 4, 5 years is what we will finally evolve into. Immediately, maybe that's not the plan. I think we want to focus on getting one thing right at the moment. And for me, I think the next big category is going to be loungewear, workout gear, yoga wear, because the world is slowly investing in health, and we're here to dress them while they get healthy.
Uh, I have a few next questions which are very breezy ones, so I'll just ask them. So,
Okay.
with mostly no ad blitz, this one is not the one. The next one is the one I'll ask them. With mostly no ad blitz, what are the marketing strategy that works best for fashion brands?
The best marketing strategy is the one that's cheapest on your pocket, is something I've always believed. We've never ever done ads. It has to be cheap, but it has to be honest. People say shoot in a palace, make it big, make it larger than life, but people really want to know how to dress when they go out for a girls' night out. As far as I'm concerned. So I think that you have to make it honest. It has to be something that doesn't intimidate or alienate your consumer, and it has to be something that is very, very clear. It's a very clear messaging to the consumer. But my marketing strategy is the same. Tell people where they can wear it, how they can wear it, and where they can purchase it. I think today availability is the new exclusivity. I really believe that. And in order to really use your marketing effectively, I think you need to have a very, very strong back-end support. So that's something I always believe in.
Musaba, you're more like you've morphed from a businesswoman who has a keen sense of fashion to you've morphed into an actor. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed what I saw last year. You're also
Thank
a
you.
very strong influencer.
Mhm.
Instagram. I mean, I see you more as an influencer in that space. So, how
Mhm.
have you kind of changed your lane from being an entrepreneur, being a businesswoman, to the acting space? How did you morph yourself, and what is it? Was it easy to get into that space? I found you so natural. I didn't even feel that she had to kind of rethink that I can easily get into this space.
Yeah.
You're just
Um,
yourself.
I think with that's it. That's the answer. I think being yourself makes you morph into various roles very, very easily. And you know what? I got a lot of flack in the middle for being trying to be too many things or doing too many things. But I believe women are multitaskers by nature. We can do multiple things, and this is just the beginning. I'm just getting started. I want to do 3 more things. And I'm young, and I'm somebody who is very, very sure of what I want to do. I think the best part was that I just had one condition, that no one thing would suffer if I did the other, you know. So while I'm on set and working on Masaba, my design does not suffer. I'm always, it's done, it's wrapped up, and then I'm on set, and vice versa. I will never do a shoot for a brand if it's going to hurt my label, or if it's going to take away time from my label. I will never do a collaboration, no matter what they're paying me, if it's going to take my attention away from the house of Masaba. So I think it's very important to set boundaries, you know. And if you set those boundaries, if you are able to multitask, a lot of people can't, you know, a lot of people get overwhelmed. I don't. I thrive when I'm multitasking. I, in fact, do my best work when I'm doing multiple things. So I think that's something that's very important. But as far as the actor gig is concerned, I really enjoy being in front of the camera. And I know that a lot of people think, oh, you're an entrepreneur, they won't take you seriously as a businesswoman, but why not? I mean, actors launch brands all the time, people are buying them. I'm just reversing that journey. So that's about it. And I am very clear that in every department, I don't get into micromanaging, I delegate. I make sure I delegate. I have set up systems. I manage my time very efficiently. I'm up at 5 in the morning and I work till I go to bed. And that's my lifestyle. So I think if your lifestyle allows it, you should do as many things as you want to do.
Fair enough. Tell me a little bit about you being an influencer. What does it mean?
I think an influencer means you have a lot of responsibility. I think you're also kind of walking on eggshells at all times because, you know, today it's a tricky, sensitive world out there. And you have to be careful about the brands you endorse and things you say. I think I want to be somebody who, I don't want to be a typical influencer where I just do everything that comes my way because I'm being paid for it. I think I have to believe in it. Like a new thing I've started is that if I'm being sent a range of products and someone wants me to endorse it, I make sure that I try it for at least a month or two and then go ahead and say, yes, okay, I will do this. Because I think if I say, hey, do this, then people vouch for that, right? So that's that. I think the influencer morphing into that was a very, it was a very natural progression, I think, because somehow by looking at the work that I did in the brand space with House of Masaba, I think people started buying into Masaba, the person as well. And I suddenly found myself being an influencer, maybe because I'm just myself. On social media, if you see my Instagram, I'm very honest, super candid, and I'm not afraid to come as I am. So I think that's what's happened.
Right. Any piece of advice for the youngsters today? You're yourself young, so maybe generation left with you, and for us as well. For us, as well, people my age as well.
For the new generation that's younger than I am, I think the one advice I would have is have a ton of discipline. I think that sometimes we go a bit off, you know, with respect to what our life is going to be. I think you make your life. I think you decide the kind of discipline you want. And you have to also put together a list of what your non-negotiables are. Like for me, fitness is a non-negotiable. Mental health, being in good shape is a non-negotiable. And I think that's what the millennial generation should really focus on, their mental health. Because if your mind is strong, if your mind is alert and you're powerful, you can achieve anything. I really believe that. So I think focus on your mental health and be very disciplined in whatever you do. And I think don't look for quick instant gratification. I think that's what's happening with today's generation. You want everything instantly. You want feedback, wealth, success instantly. I would say just put in the work and everything else will follow. And for the older generation, I think I would say, don't be afraid to start a second or third or fourth innings. You know, just because you've done one thing your whole life doesn't mean you can't do something else now. Don't listen to people and do everything that you want to achieve. You have one life and it's short, so live it to the fullest.
Thank you, Masaba. Thank you for being with us. That was really
Thank you,
Thank you.
Vijaya.
And all the best wishes to you, Masaba. I look forward for your next show.
Yes, soon.
I saw your Instagram post and I saw you posting those pictures, doing makeup and all. And I'm looking forward to it. Yes.
Thank you, Vijaya.